Hello, so this is installment number 5 of your little mini chunk guides to achieving success with your oral commentary. And I'm going to talk this afternoon about the way in which you should go about choosing your extracts. So we're assuming now that you have decided upon your texts and you have formulated your global issue. It may be a working title that will have some revisions as you move forward, but fundamentally you kind of have a sense of what you're doing. And now it comes to choosing those extracts. And I think that we have to be very careful and very thoughtful about the moment in the text that we choose to explore. You must remember that that moment in the text has to, one, allow you to focus on your global issue, which I think is probably self-evident and perhaps the easiest aspect of this choice that you're making. But it also needs to be a moment in the text that allows you to hit criteria B and therefore explore the authorial choices that have been made. So it needs to be a technique-heavy extract. So you want to be looking for extracts that, if it's a written text, are full up with language devices that you can unpick. Obviously, if it's a visual text, perhaps in some ways that's easier. But you also, if it's visual, we're looking at angles and colors and framing, etc., etc., etc. Ideally, the text will be in some ways characteristic of the work as a whole, and therefore it will allow you to explore techniques that are commonly employed throughout your text. So you're looking for texts that are technique heavy, and you've found your page, you found your moment, you found your still frame, whatever it is. How do you actually decide on the number of lines, and where do you cut and where don't you cut? So firstly, it's a maximum of 40 lines. Now, this is not absolutely set in stone. So that means that, for example, if you've got a poem, you can take the entire poem if it's 42 lines. It would be rather strange and arbitrary to chop the last 2 lines off. So this is a guideline. Increasingly, with the new oral, with this pairing of orals that you're doing, students are opting for shorter extracts. So for example, 25 lines, 30 lines. And I think that's a very sensible choice because you have a lot to do in 10 minutes. And even in 5 minutes, if we think about, looking at one text. So I would encourage you, unless it's a poem, unless it's something that needs to stay within the 40-line area, to go a little bit shorter, go around 25, 30 lines. Make sure with the written texts that you are able to unpick and analyze the opening line and the closing line. So we want to make sure, in short, that the way that we have chopped our oral, the way we have gone, this is my line 1, and this is my last line, line 30, or whatever, is significant and is purposeful. We haven't simply gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 down to 20, 30 and chopped. But in fact, we've made a decision, and we've made that decision based on an authorial choice. So once again, make sure that you can unpick and explore the opening line. It may not be the first word of that opening line, but certainly something that's coming in that opening line, looking for a technique. And we want to also make sure that we can explore the end of that extract, okay? So it's really, really important that we choose carefully. We're able to use our first and our last lines, and that we are able to move through that text looking for maybe 3, I think 3 is a good number, 3 to 4 different authorial choices that you can explore as you move through the extract. Now, another important thing to say as you go through that oral, and when you get on to unpicking those lines, and we're talking again about your written text here, is that you are able to group ideas together. You don't have time to unpick your text in what we call a linear fashion, i.e. line by line by line by line by line. You don't have time, and in fact, it's not a particularly valuable process because it may be that you are dedicating equal time and importance to lines that are not equally important or rich in textual devices. So you want to group, you know, if you open up your extract, say we're looking at, I don't know, Fitzgerald's Valley of the Ashes from Gatsby, then, you know, maybe you've started to look at the symbolism that's there through the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, or perhaps you're looking at figurative language. So you group, use big umbrella terms like symbolism, metaphorical language, figurative language, diction, you know, big words that will allow you to place, big terms, sorry, that will allow you to place different aspects of your extract together and group them. So we can say, you know, here we see the author's use of symbolism in line 1, which serves to expose the, you know, the painful effect of inequality on the narrator. We can see that this is repeated on line 6, where we also have a repetition of this symbolic language. And again, further on in the extract on line 30, and then you read those extracts and you unpick. So you're grouping and pulling together and moving through the extract. And you may go back and then go back to another, you know, a earlier spot, you know, once you've finished, and say, you know, moving on, we can see how the author also employs punctuation and syntax to strengthen their argument and to expose the difficulties of oppression. This is clear online, and again, you're grouping together, okay? So in short, make sure that your extract, and I think we're really talking fundamentally here about your literary text, which is likely to be a language heavy text. As I say, I think with your visual text, it's a little bit easier, but we'll come to that in a sec. Make sure that your written text is rich in authorial choices that you can unpick and that relate to your global issue. Make sure that your first line or first couple of lines are interesting and allow you to unpick them. Make sure equally that your last lines are full up with language technique or you know, have something relevant in that you can unpick. Make sure as you work through your extract that you try to group together in larger umbrella terms that will allow you to move backwards and forwards and group ideas, and it will help with your structure. If we move to your visual text, if you're going for a visual text, then, you know, if you're taking a still frame, you know, I think perhaps if you've got an image that's already a structured image, then clearly we want to think about the framing, the color, the angle, the graphic weight, whether there's personal sensitization, so whether you've got somebody looking at you directly, whether that marries up with the language that's being used. These are all very common aspects of a text that we can talk about, color connotation. You know, but make sure again that you've got at least 2 or 3, preferably 3, strong techniques that you can explore, and make sure that, you know, this is a relevant still. So we really want to think about those moments that we choose, because it's the choice of extract, I think, that allows you to do very well, particularly with criteria B, and the way you move through that extract. Fundamentally, your choice needs to be seen by your examiner and by your teacher to be purposeful and thoughtful, to engage very tightly with criteria A, your knowledge and understanding, and criteria B, interpretation and evaluation of the authorial devices that we see there. So take your time. It may be that you have 2 or 3 or 4 different extracts you're not sure, or different stills. And don't discard, if you're feeling confused, remember that you're also going to have to link out to the wider body of work. So perhaps the ones you're not so certain about will be the moments that you refer to when you step into your conversation about the wider body of work. Okay, so in our next installment, we're going to talk about how you structure the oral, and we're going to get on to a conversation, I think, about that wider body of work. So I hope this was helpful. I hope that you have noticed the strange little figure that's poking out of the shelf there. And do take your time, go back over any little installments, and hopefully this will help you choose an extract wisely and choose an extract that allows you to demonstrate your knowledge and your excellent understanding of your